Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the premiere episode of Lanterns, the new HBO series about the Green Lanterns. It was called Pilot, and the story of the episode begins in 1996, and we see young Jon Stewart watching a television interview with Hal Jordan, who's already a celebrated superhero, of course known as the Green Lantern. Jon's brothers quickly tell him to turn off the TV because their father is coming home and they're not supposed to be watching TV, apparently. And Jon does switch it off before his father enters the house, but not quickly enough that his father was fooled that they weren't watching TV. So his father takes him outside and places an apple on his head, and then asking his son one simple question: "Are you afraid?" Jon answers no, at which point his father raises his gun and shoots the apple, thankfully without hurting Jon, who never flinched. His father then seemed very proud of Jon for this, embracing his son and leading him back into the house. The story then jumps forward to 2016, as Jon waits patiently along the side of a road when a car comes screeching around the corner, driven by Hal Jordan, who apologizes for his lateness, but Jon doesn't seem particularly bothered. The conversation quickly shifts toward Jon's Green Lantern training. Then Hal decides to turn an ordinary drive into another lesson. He removes his Green Lantern ring, places it on the dashboard, telling Jon to meet him at a taco stand about 3 miles up the road before jumping out of the moving car. The car sails over a cliff as Jon activates the ring to protect himself from dying in the crash. Having not died in the crash, he continues towards the taco stand on foot as the ring suddenly delivers a cryptic message to him involving Hale in Rushville, Nebraska. Jon reaches the taco stand and discovers that Hal has beaten him there, and that he is busy signing autographs and posing for pictures with customers. Once they finally sit down together, Jon places the ring on the table and tells Hal about the strange message, at which point Hal's demeanor immediately changes. He grabs the ring and flies away. Jon eventually arrives in Rushville, Nebraska himself, where he finds Hal sitting alone in the bleachers of a high school football stadium, as the location was recently the scene of a shooting. Local Sheriff Kerry Kane has effectively frozen Hal, who believes the shooting involved an alien, out of the investigation, as she isn't interested in entertaining that theory. Then Jon notices a suspicious man behaving strangely near the field, so he approaches the sheriff to warn her. The man realizes he's been made and runs, so Jon gives chase and catches him. Sheriff Kane refuses to allow Hal to question the man, so Hal decides to get himself arrested a little later by starting a bar fight, on the idea that he can get himself thrown in jail near the suspect and question him. But Sheriff Kane isn't fooled, and while she does arrest Hal, she makes sure that he's nowhere near the suspect. But backing up a bit, we see that just after Hal was arrested, Jon had sex in a car in the parking lot of the bar with a woman he met there during the fight that Hal engaged in. The following day, Hal is arraigned. His attorney is Billy Macon, Sheriff Kane's husband. But another member of the Macon family quickly becomes even more important when he pays Hal's bail, and that would be Billy's father, William Macon. William, it turns out, commands his own private militia and has some unusual ideas about what happened in Rushville. In fact, William is even more convinced that aliens are involved. William has a talk with the sheriff and arranges for Hal to get an interview with the suspect. William's wife formally introduces herself to Jon as he and Hal are leaving the Macon property, and we see that she's the woman from the bar. Hal later has an intense conversation with the suspect, and when the individual threatens to and then does blow himself up, which only wasn't an absolute disaster because Hal enveloped him in a ring bubble, it becomes quite apparent that he was in fact an alien. The story then jumps to 2026, as Jon returns to the same football field where he and Hal investigated the shooting 10 years earlier. Sheriff Kane meets him, and they walk towards the bleachers. There, they find Hal Jordan's nearly frozen body sitting on the bleachers with a bullet in his forehead. And the episode ends with Jon looking for Hal's ring on his hand, but not finding it. So I was a little dubious as to whether the show would be any good, given that, in the trailer, they didn't make it seem much like an actual superhero show. So I didn't know if I would like it, but Kyle Chandler is excellent as this version of Hal. So I really enjoyed his performance, though this Hal is very different from other versions in that he's a huge dick. So that sort of doesn't really appeal to me, the Hal Jordan as a dick thing, but he's just so good in the part and the writing is so good that that it works, and I'm really liking it. What's also great is Jon Stewart being that Dick's absolute counterweight. He's completely unimpressed by Hal's explosive attitude. They've got this dynamic that's a full-on clash of philosophies. There's, the weary, burnt-out veteran who's seen too much versus the disciplined, by-the-book rookie that's chomping at the bit to take his place. Then there's the noirish atmosphere around the small-town murder case with the no-nonsense lady sheriff who's equally unimpressed with Hal, all of which creates a palpable friction and unease. And, what's William Makeham's deal? He is shady AF with a certain amount of unseemly control over the sheriff. And he's someone who Hal is now kind of beholden to, which is unsettling, as is the now undeniable alien threat, because that alien was super creepy, and we know nearly nothing about what he and those allied with him are up to, though we can definitely sense that it isn't good. And then there was the ending. Was that really Hal? If so, what the hell happened? And where is his ring? I think that unraveling that over the rest of the season with more scenes from 2016 will be very intense. So I'm really looking forward to it. We know we're going to see Guy Gardner this season, but will we see any non-human Green Lanterns? We know we're going to see Sinestro, which is cool. Will we see Oa and the Guardians? Only time will tell. But yeah, this was just a really strong premiere, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season either way. And that's really it. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.